Sienna Thorne had always known she was different. While other healers in the village of Frostholm used herbs and bandages, her touch carried something more, a warmth that went beyond flesh and bone, reaching into the very essence of life itself. She kept this secret locked away, hidden beneath layers of ordinary remedies and careful smiles. The winter wind howled through the narrow streets as Sienna made her way home from the village square. Her leather satchel, heavy with dried lavender and moon petals, swung against her hip. The sky above churned with dark clouds, promising a storm that would blanket the world in white silence. She paused at the bridge overlooking the frozen river, something pulling at her awareness like an invisible thread. The air felt different tonight, charged with an energy that made her skin tingle and her heart race with unexplained anticipation. That was when she saw him. Figure stood at the far end of the bridge, tall and impossibly still against the swirling snow. Even from a distance, Sienna could feel the heat radiating from him, a stark contrast to the biting cold around them. His cloak, deep crimson like fresh blood on snow, billowed in the wind, though he seemed untouched by its fury. Their eyes met across the distance, and Sienna gasped. His gaze burned with an inner fire, amber and gold swirling in depths that spoke of ancient knowledge and carefully guarded secrets. For a moment, time seemed to stop, the world narrowing to just the two of them connected by an invisible force neither could explain. The stranger in the storm, the man moved toward her with fluid grace, each step deliberate and measured. As he drew closer, Sienna noticed the sharp angles of his face, the way his dark hair seemed to catch the light like polished obsidian. But it was his presence that truly captivated her, a commanding energy that made her want to both flee and move closer. "You feel it too," he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through her very bones. It was not a question, but a statement of undeniable truth. Sienna found her voice, though it came out softer than intended. "I do not know what you mean, stranger. This is a small village, and we rarely welcome those we do not know, especially during such dangerous weather." A hint of a smile played at the corners of his mouth, transforming his severe features into something breathtaking. "My name is Draxion. I have traveled far, following a pull I could not ignore. It led me here, to you." The snow fell harder now, thick flakes that should have obscured vision, yet Sienna could see him with perfect clarity. His words should have frightened her, should have sent her running to the safety of her cottage. Instead, she felt an inexplicable trust, a recognition that went beyond logic or reason. "I am Sienna," she replied, extending her hand without thinking. "Perhaps you should come inside, away from the storm. No traveler should be left to freeze on a night like this." When his fingers closed around hers, warmth flooded through her entire body. Not the gentle heat of her healing touch, but something wild and untamed, like standing too close to a roaring fire. She should have pulled away, but the sensation was intoxicating. Addictive in its intensity, Secrets in the Firelight Sienna's cottage was modest but warm, filled with bundles of drying herbs and shelves lined with glass bottles containing remedies of every color. She guided Draxion to a chair near the hearth, acutely aware of how his presence seemed to fill the small space, making everything feel both smaller and somehow more alive. She busied herself preparing tea, needing something to do with her hands, some way to process the strange encounter. As she worked, she felt his gaze on her, studying her with an intensity that made her skin flush despite the chill that had followed them inside. "You are a healer," Draxion observed, his eyes scanning the various bottles and dried plants. "But there is more to you than what others see. I can sense it, the power that flows through your veins." Sienna's hands stilled on the teapot, her heart hammering against her ribs. No one had ever spoken so directly about what she carefully kept hidden. "How could you possibly know such things about me? We have only just met." Draxion rose from the chair, moving toward her with that same fluid grace. He stopped just close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body, see the flecks of gold dancing in his amber eyes. "Because I recognize what you are trying to hide. I carry secrets too, Sienna. Ancient ones that have kept me isolated for longer than you could imagine." His hand reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. When she remained still, he gently tucked a strand of her copper hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. The touch sent sparks dancing across her skin, a sensation both foreign and achingly familiar. "What are you?" she whispered, though part of her already knew the answer. Felt it in the way her power responded to his presence. Recognizing something primal and eternal, the truth revealed Draxion's expression softened, vulnerability flickering across his features. "I am what your ancestors once called the Sky Guardians, the ones who bridged the gap between Earth and Heaven. I am a dragon, Sienna, though I can take this form to walk among your kind." The words should have terrified her, should have sent her scrambling for the door. Dragons were creatures of legend, beings of immense power that had vanished from the world centuries ago, leaving behind only stories and warnings. Yet standing before him now, Sienna felt no fear, only a deep sense of rightness, as if this moment had been written in the stars long before either of them drew breath. "Show me," she said, surprising herself with her boldness. "If what you say is true, show me your true form." Draxion searched her face, looking for any sign of doubt or deception. Finding none, he stepped back, giving himself space. The air around him began to shimmer, heat waves distorting reality itself. His body started to change, expand, transform into something magnificent and terrifying. Scales emerged, a deep crimson that caught the firelight and reflected it back in 1,000 shades of red and gold. His form grew, filling the cottage until Sienna thought the walls might burst. But at the last moment, the transformation stopped, leaving him in a state between human and dragon. His eyes remained the same. Those burning amber orbs that held centuries of wisdom and unexpected tenderness. Wings, translucent and powerful, spread from his shoulders, nearly spanning the width of her home. His hands had become clawed. Yet when he reached toward her again, the gesture remained gentle. Asking permission rather than demanding, Sienna moved forward without hesitation. Placing her palm against his scaled chest, beneath her touch she could feel his heart beating, strong and steady, remarkably similar to her own. Her healing energy surged forward, unbidden, not to mend but to connect, intertwining with the ancient magic that flowed through him. "I have searched for you across lifetimes," Draxion said, his voice now carrying a resonance that spoke of his true nature. The legend spoke of one who could bridge our worlds, whose power could unite what was long ago divided. "I believe that one is you." Tears pricked at Sienna's eyes, though she could not explain their source. Joy, fear, recognition, all swirled together in a tempest of emotion. "I have felt incomplete my entire life, as if part of me was missing, waiting for something I could not name. Perhaps I was waiting for you." A bond forged in magic. The storm outside raged with renewed fury. Wind howling like a living thing, snow piling high against the windows. Inside the cottage, another kind of storm brewed, one born of magic and destiny intertwining. Draxion slowly returned to his human form, the transformation as graceful as it had been powerful. He stood before her once more as a man, though Sienna knew she would never see him as merely human again. The knowledge of what he truly was, the majesty and power contained within that mortal shell, would forever color her perception. "There are laws," Draxion said, his voice heavy with regret. "Ancient decrees that forbid what I feel growing between us. The Dragon Council has ruled for millennia that our kinds should remain separate, that the power created by such a union would be too great, too unpredictable." Sienna lifted her chin, defiance sparking in her green eyes. "I have spent my life following rules that others made, hiding what I am to fit into a world that would fear me if they knew the truth. I will not let ancient laws dictate my heart, not when I have finally found someone who truly sees me." Draxion's hand cupped her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone with infinite tenderness. "You are brave, Sienna Thorne. Braver than warriors I have known who face death without flinching. But you must understand what choosing this path means. The Council will come for us. They will try to separate us, to punish what they see as a transgression against natural order." "Then let them come," Sienna replied, covering his hand with her own. "I would rather face 1,000 dangers at your side than live a lifetime of safety without knowing what we could become together. The distance between them disappeared as Draxion pulled her close, his lips finding hers in a kiss that sealed their fate. Magic erupted around them, her healing light merging with his dragon fire, creating something entirely new. The very air shimmered with power, and outside, the storm paused as if the world itself held its breath, witnessing the birth of something that would change everything. The morning light filtered through the frost-covered windows of Sienna's cottage, painting everything in shades of silver and gold. She woke to find herself wrapped in Draxion's arms, his warmth chasing away the winter chill that permeated the old stone walls. For a moment, she allowed herself to simply exist in this perfect stillness, memorizing the feel of his heartbeat against her back, the gentle rise and fall of his breathing. But reality, as it always does, came creeping back with the daylight. Sienna carefully extracted herself from his embrace, moving to the window to look out at the transformed landscape. Snow had buried the village overnight, creating a pristine white blanket that sparkled like scattered diamonds under the weak winter sun. Draxion stirred behind her, and she felt his presence before his arms encircled her waist, pulling her back against his chest. "You are troubled," he murmured against her hair, his breath warm on her neck. "The villagers will have questions about you," Sienna said, leaning into his embrace despite her worries. "Frostholm is a small place, and strangers are noticed, especially those who appear during magical storms and choose to stay." "Then I will give them a story they can accept," Draxion replied, turning her in his arms to face him. "I can be a traveling merchant delayed by the weather, a scholar seeking ancient texts, whatever tale will allow me to remain by your side without raising suspicion." Sienna traced the line of his jaw, marveling at how human he appeared now, how perfectly he masked the magnificent creature that dwelled beneath the surface. "And how long can we maintain such a deception? How long before the Dragon Council discovers what we have begun?" Whispers of warning, the days that followed, were filled with a happiness Sienna had never known. Draxion integrated himself into village life with surprising ease, claiming to be a historian studying the ancient folklore of the Northern Territories. The villagers, charmed by his knowledge and generous nature, welcomed him without question. But Sienna could feel the tension building beneath the surface, like pressure gathering before a storm. Draxion grew increasingly restless as weeks passed, often staring at the sky with a longing that spoke of wings and freedom. She knew he was suppressing his true nature, containing the dragon within for her sake, and the cost of such restraint weighed heavily on both of them. One evening, as they walked along the frozen river under a canopy of stars, Draxion stopped abruptly. His body went rigid, his eyes scanning the darkness with an intensity that made Sienna's heart race with alarm. "They are coming," he said, his voice carrying the resonance of his dragon self. "I can feel them approaching, riding the wind currents from the eastern mountains. The council has discovered us." Fear gripped Sienna's heart, but she refused to let it show. She took his hand, squeezing it firmly. "Then we face them together. I will not hide from those who would deny us this bond." Draxion pulled her close, his embrace almost desperate in its intensity. "You do not understand what you are offering to face. The Dragon Council is ancient and powerful, bound by traditions that predate human civilization. They will see our connection as an abomination, a threat to the delicate balance they have maintained for eons." "I understand more than you think," Sienna replied, pulling back to meet his gaze. "I understand that what we have found is rare and precious, worth fighting for. My healing gift has shown me many things, Draxion. I have touched the dying and felt their greatest regrets. None of them ever regretted loving too much, only loving too little." The council descends. They arrived at midnight, 3 days after Draxion's warning. Sienna woke to the sound of wings beating against the wind, a rhythm that shook the very foundations of her cottage. She rushed to the window and gasped at the sight before her. Dragons circled above the village, their scales gleaming in the moonlight like living jewels. Emerald green, sapphire blue, and platinum silver. They were creatures of devastating beauty and terrifying power. The villagers remained asleep, held in slumber by some ancient magic that kept them unaware of the supernatural gathering above their homes. Draxion stood in the center of the room, already transformed. His crimson scales caught the moonlight streaming through the windows, and his wings were partially spread in a defensive posture. "Stay behind me," he commanded, but Sienna moved to his side instead, her hand finding his scaled forearm. "Together," she said firmly. "Whatever comes, we face it together." The largest dragon, the platinum one, descended first. Landing in the snow-covered square with enough force to crack the frozen fountain, it shifted, taking human form, revealing a woman of ethereal beauty with silver hair that flowed like liquid mercury and eyes that held the weight of countless centuries. "Draxion of the Crimson Flight," her voice rang out, clear and cold as winter itself. "You stand accused of breaking the most sacred of our laws. You have bonded with a human, threatening the separation that has kept both our kinds safe for a millennium." Two more dragons landed, transforming into human shape, a man with emerald eyes that sparkled with barely contained fury, and another woman whose blue scales had become a gown that shimmered like water. They formed a triangle around Draxion and Sienna, their power pressing down like a physical weight. Draxion's voice, when he spoke, carried both respect and defiance. "Elder Celestine, I do not deny the bond, but I challenge the law that forbids it. Our ancestors created these rules out of fear, not wisdom. They saw power and assumed destruction, never considering that unity might bring strength instead of chaos." Love's true power, Elder Celestine's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in her ancient eyes. "You speak of things you do not fully understand, young one. The last time our kinds united in such a way, it nearly destroyed both races. The power that resulted was unstable, unpredictable, capable of rewriting reality itself." Sienna stepped forward, her fear transforming into courage. Perhaps it was unstable because it was forbidden, forced to exist in shadows and secrecy. Perhaps the destruction came not from the union itself, but from those who tried to tear it apart. The emerald-dyed counselor, who had been introduced as Tormund, laughed harshly. "A human dares to lecture the Dragon Council on our own history? Your lifespan is but a heartbeat compared to ours, child. What could you possibly know of events that transpired before your ancestors' ancestors drew breath?" "I know what I feel," Sienna replied, her voice steady despite the overwhelming power surrounding her. "I know that when Draxion and I connected, I felt complete for the first time in my existence. I know that my healing gift, which I have hidden and suppressed my entire life, sang with joy when it recognized his dragonfire. Our powers do not clash, they harmonize." The blue-gowned counselor Nerita tilted her head, studying Sienna with keen interest. "Show us," she commanded. "Demonstrate this harmony you claim exists." Sienna looked at Draxion, finding encouragement in his amber eyes. She placed her palm against his scaled chest, just over his heart, and let her power flow freely for the first time in her life. Golden light erupted from her hand, spreading across his crimson scales like sunrise breaking over mountains. But instead of simply healing or soothing, her power merged with his dragonfire. The gold and crimson intertwined, creating patterns of light that danced through the air like living things. Where the two magics met, something new was born. A force that felt both ancient and newly awakened. Destructive and creative in perfect balance. The three council members stepped back, shock evident on their normally composed faces. The light show intensified, spreading outward in waves that touched everything around them. Where it passed, frozen flowers bloomed, cracked stones mended themselves, and the very air seemed to sing with renewed vitality. A choice of destiny, Elder Celestine raised her hand, and the display of power gradually faded, though the changes it had wrought remained. She stared at Sienna and Draxion with an expression that mixed wonder with deep concern. "What you have shown us changes nothing," she said, though her voice lacked its earlier conviction. "If anything, it confirms our fears. Such power, united and unrestricted, could reshape the world. In the wrong hands, it could unmake it entirely." Draxion moved to stand fully beside Sienna, his wing curving protectively around her. "Then, help us learn to control it. Guide us, instead of condemning us. The world is changing, Elder. The old ways, the old fears, they no longer serve us. Perhaps it is time for dragon and human to walk together again, not as masters and servants, but as equals. The Dragon Council led them to the ancient testing grounds high in the eternal peaks, where snow never melted and the air itself seemed to hold its breath in anticipation. Sienna stood beside Draxion at the edge of a vast chasm, its depths hidden by swirling mists that glowed with an eerie blue light. Elder. Celestine's voice echoed across the barren landscape. The first trial tests your ability to maintain balance when faced with opposing forces. You must cross the chasm of duality, where fire and ice wage eternal war. Your combined powers must create a path, but should either force overwhelm the other, you both will fall. Oh. Sienna looked down into the abyss, watching flames erupt from one side while glacial winds howled from the other. The two forces met in the middle, creating a maelstrom of steam and crackling energy that would tear apart anything caught between them. Draxion transformed partially, his wings spreading wide, scales gleaming like polished rubies. My fire alone cannot cross this divide. The ice will extinguish it before we reach the other side. And my healing light has no power over such elemental forces, Sienna added, studying the chaos before them. Unless we approach this differently. She turned to face him, an idea forming in her mind. What if the point is not to overcome the forces, but to unite them? Fire and ice, opposing elements that create steam when they meet. Steam is neither one nor the other, but both transformed into something new. Understanding dawned in Draxion's eyes. He shifted fully into his dragon form, lowering himself so Sienna could climb onto his back. She settled between his wings, pressing her palms against his scales, and felt her power surge in response to his nearness. Together, she whispered, and let her golden healing light pour into him. Draxion leaped into the chasm, his wings catching the violent air currents. Fire erupted from his jaws, but this time it was wrapped in Sienna's golden light, transforming it into something that did not seek to destroy the ice, but to dance with it. Where the transformed flame met the glacial winds, beautiful crystalline structures formed, creating a bridge of frozen fire that held just long enough for them to land safely on the other side. The council watched in silence as the bridge dissolved behind them, turning to chaos. Elder Celestine nodded slowly, the first hint of approval crossing her features. The first trial is passed. You have learned that balance requires transformation, not domination. Second trial. Shadows of Doubt, the second testing ground, was a forest that existed in perpetual twilight, where trees grew so tall their tops disappeared into darkness, and the ground was carpeted with luminescent moss that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air here felt thick with unspoken fears and ancient sorrows. Nerita stepped forward, her expression grave. The second trial tests your commitment when faced with your deepest doubts and fears. You will enter the Forest of Echoes separately. Within, you will face visions designed to break your resolve, to make you question everything you believe about each other and yourselves. You must find each other again, or remain lost forever in your own uncertainties. Before either could protest, the forest seemed to reach out and pull them apart. Sienna found herself alone among the towering trees, Draxion's presence vanishing as if he had never existed. Almost immediately, the visions began. She saw Draxion in his full dragon glory, surrounded by others of his kind, laughing at the foolish human who had believed he could love her. She saw herself old and withered, while he remained eternally young, his eyes filled with pity and regret. She saw the village burning, destroyed by the power their union had unleashed, each vision cut deeper than the last, finding the secret fears she had never voiced even to herself. But as the illusions grew more painful, Sienna began to notice something. They all focused on what she might lose. What could go wrong, never on what they had already shared, the truth of their connection. She closed her eyes, shutting out the visions, and instead focused on her memories. The warmth of Draxion's embrace, the way his laughter rumbled through his chest, the gentleness in his eyes when he looked at her. These were real, solid, undeniable truths that no illusion could erase. With her eyes still closed, she began to walk, following not her sight, but the pull of her heart. The bond between them was more than emotion. It was written into her very essence now. A compass that would always lead her to him, finding truth in darkness meanwhile. Draxion faced his own demons in another part of the forest. He saw the council executing Sienna for the crime of loving him. He saw himself losing control of his dragonfire and reducing her to ash. He saw centuries stretching before him, alone once more, haunted by the brief happiness he had destroyed. But like Sienna, he recognized the visions for what they were, fears given form, possibilities that held no power unless he surrendered to them. He had lived for centuries before meeting her, had known solitude and duty and the cold comfort of tradition. None of it compared to the few weeks he had spent in her presence. He transformed into his dragon form, using his heightened senses to search for her. The forest tried to confuse him, sending phantom scents and false trails, but he pushed past them all, trusting in the bond that had formed between them, stronger than magic. Deeper than blood, they found each other in a clearing where the moss glowed brightest, creating a circle of soft light in the surrounding darkness. Sienna ran to him, and Draxion shifted to human form to catch her in his arms, both of them trembling with relief and renewed certainty. "I saw terrible things," Sienna confessed, her face pressed against his chest. "As did I," Draxion replied, stroking her hair. "But none of them were as powerful as this, as us, together and real." The forest began to fade around them, the illusions dissolving like morning mist. They found themselves back at the testing grounds, the council watching with expressions that had softened from judgment to something approaching respect. Tormund spoke, his earlier hostility replaced with grudging admiration. "You have passed the second trial. You have proven that your bond can withstand doubt and fear, that it is rooted in truth rather than illusion." The final trial, the ultimate sacrifice, the third testing ground, was the most sacred place in dragon lore. The peak of ascension, where the first dragons had learned to fly and the last would come to die. Here, the boundary between life and death, mortal and eternal, grew thin as gossamer. Elder Celestine's voice carried the weight of sorrow as she explained the final trial. "The last test is the most difficult, for it requires the greatest sacrifice. One of you must give up your power completely, permanently, to save the other's life. Only through willing sacrifice can you prove that your love transcends self-interest." Before them appeared the pools of liquid starlight, each one pulsing with ancient magic. "Sienna, if you drink from the left pool, Draxion's dragon essence will be transferred to you, and he will become fully human, powerless, and mortal. Draxion, if you drink from the right pool, Sienna's healing gift will be yours, and she will be left as an ordinary human, her power forever extinguished." "There must be another way," Draxion protested. But Celestine shook her head. "This is the nature of true unity. Sometimes love requires one to diminish so the other can flourish. Choose who will sacrifice, or both of you will lose everything." Sienna and Draxion turned to face each other, both seeing the same determination reflected in the other's eyes. They spoke simultaneously, their words overlapping. "I will drink," they said in unison. They both reached for the pools at the same moment, each trying to be the one to sacrifice for the other. Their hands plunged into the liquid starlight together, and the world erupted in blinding light. Transformation beyond sacrifice when the light faded. Something had changed fundamentally. Sienna felt power coursing through her veins. But it was not Draxion's dragon fire. It was her own healing gift magnified beyond anything she had imagined possible. And beside her, Draxion stood transformed. His dragon essence not diminished but evolved, merged with something entirely new. Elder Celestine gasped, a sound of pure astonishment. This should not be possible. The pools were designed to transfer power, not to multiply it. But Nerita was laughing, a sound like bells ringing across mountaintops. "Do you not see, Celestine?" They both chose sacrifice. Both reached for the pools simultaneously. The magic could not choose between two equally willing hearts, so it did the only thing it could. It created balance through transformation rather than subtraction. Sienna looked at her hands and saw them glowing with golden light that held flecks of crimson fire. Draxion's scales, when he partially transformed, showed veins of healing gold running through the crimson. They had not exchanged powers. They had truly merged them, becoming something neither dragon nor human, but both. The trial was not about sacrifice, Sienna realized, her voice filled with wonder. It was about willingness to sacrifice. The magic responded to our intentions, not our actions. Elder Celestine stepped forward, and for the first time since they had met, she smiled. It transformed her face, making her appear not ancient and terrible, but wise and kind. You have passed all 3 trials, but more than that, you have shown us something we had forgotten. Power does not always corrupt, love does not always destroy, and unity can create beauty rather than chaos. A new beginning formed, and Narita approached, their earlier hostility completely dissolved. We were wrong, Tormund admitted, his emerald eyes reflecting genuine remorse. We let fear of the past blind us to possibilities of the future. You two have proven that dragon and human can unite in a way that strengthens both. What happens now? Draxion asked, his arm around Sienna's waist. Holding her close, as if he still could not quite believe they had succeeded. Elder Celestine raised her hands. And the other council members joined her, creating a circle of power around Sienna and Draxion. Now, we acknowledge what you have become. Not dragon, not human, but something new. We name you the first of the Twilight Kin, bridge between our worlds. Proof that the old laws need not bind us forever. Magic swirled around them, not constraining, but consecrating, marking them as something unique and precious. Sienna felt it settle into her bones like a blessing, felt Draxion's presence in her mind and heart become a permanent, unbreakable link. The council will revoke the old laws, Celestine continued. We will open the way for others to follow the path you have blazed, should they prove themselves worthy. But you two will be the guardians of this new age, responsible for ensuring that the power born of such unions is used wisely. Sienna looked up at Draxion, seeing her own joy and relief reflected in his eyes. They had not only won their right to be together, they had changed the world. Opened doors that had been sealed for centuries. Wings, united as dawn, broke over the peak of ascension. Draxion transformed fully. His magnificent dragon form now marked with golden patterns that matched the light in Sienna's hands. She climbed onto his back, settling between his wings as if she had been born to ride the wind. Are you ready? He asked, his voice resonating through their bond. For what? Sienna replied, her heart soaring with anticipation. To fly, he said simply. To show the world what we have become. With a powerful leap, Draxion launched himself into the air, Sienna secure on his back. They rose higher and higher, leaving the testing grounds behind. The council watching their ascent with expressions of hope rather than fear as they flew. Sienna released her power in a gentle wave that spread across the landscape below. Where it touched, winter flowers bloomed in the snow. Animals emerged from their burrows to bask in the unexpected warmth and in the villages below. People looked up in wonder at the dragon trailing golden light across the sky. She could feel Draxion's joy through their bond, could sense his dragon fire harmonizing with her healing gift, creating a symphony of magic that sang of new beginnings. They were no longer separate beings trying to fit together. They had become a true unity, each making the other stronger, better. More complete, forever in flight, they returned to Frostholm as the sun reached its peak. Landing gently in the village square where their journey had begun, the villagers emerged from their homes, no longer held in enchanted sleep, and gasped at the sight of the magnificent dragon bearing their beloved healer on his back. But there was no fear in their eyes, it's only wonder. The magic radiating from Sienna and Draxion carried with it a sense of peace and rightness that dispelled any terror. Children ran forward with delighted laughter, and even the elders smiled. Recognizing that something miraculous had occurred, Draxion shifted to his human form, helping Sienna slide down from his back. They stood together, hand in hand, facing the people who had been her family long before she knew what family could truly mean. "No, do not be afraid," Sienna said, her voice carrying to every corner of the square. "What you see before you is not a threat, but a promise that different worlds can unite, that love can bridge any divide, that the future holds wonders we cannot yet imagine." An old woman stepped forward, one who had known Sienna since childhood, who had seen her struggle to hide her gift and fit into a world that did not understand her. She looked at Sienna's glowing hands, at Draxion's protective presence, at the obvious love that flowed between them, and she nodded slowly. "We have always known you were special, child," the old woman said. "We just did not know how special until now. If this dragon has won your heart, then he has earned our trust as well." The tension broke like a dam, and the villagers surged forward, not with torches and fear, but with questions and curiosity and cautious acceptance. Draxion answered their questions with patience, showing them that dragons were not the monsters of legend, but beings capable of reason, emotion, and love. Epilogue: the dance of destiny years past, measured not in the linear time of mortals, but in the fluid cycles of magic and growth. Sienna and Draxion became legends in their own right, traveling between dragon aeries and human villages, teaching others about the power of unity, helping those who wished to bridge the gap between species. Other bonds formed, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. Dragons who had spent centuries alone found human companions who saw past scales and fire to the souls beneath. Humans with gifts like Sienna's discovered that their powers could harmonize with dragon magic, creating new forms of healing, protection, and creation. The Dragon Council, no longer bound by ancient fears, evolved into something new. A governing body that represented both species equally, guided by the wisdom of the past, but open to the possibilities of the future. And at the center of it all stood Sienna and Draxion, the first of the Twilight kin, proof that love could indeed conquer all, not through force or dominance, but through transformation and willing sacrifice. Through the courage to choose unity over separation, hope over fear. On quiet evenings, they would return to the cottage in Frostholm, to the place where their story began. Draxion would sit by the fire in human form, and Sienna would rest her head on his shoulder, both of them marveling at how far they had come from that first moment on the bridge when their eyes met across the swirling snow. "Do you ever regret it?" Sienna would sometimes ask, though she already knew the answer. Defying the council, risking everything for this bond. Draxion would always respond the same way, tilting her chin up so he could look into her eyes. Those beautiful green eyes that had captured his heart and changed his world. "My only regret is that I did not find you sooner. Every moment with you is worth an eternity of solitude." And as they kissed, their combined magic would dance through the air like fireflies, golden and crimson lights intertwining, creating patterns of beauty that told their story better than any words ever could. A story of fire meeting frost, of dragon and human becoming one, of love that transcended all boundaries and created something eternal in the distance. Other dragons would take flight, some carrying human companions, all of them living proof that the impossible was simply waiting for someone brave enough to make it real. The sky belonged to them all now, a vast canvas where different beings could soar together, united by bonds stronger than any ancient law, brighter than any fear. This was their legacy, their gift to the world. Not just the power they had unlocked, but the truth they had proven, that love, true love, could transform everything it touched, turning separation into unity, fear into hope, and two lonely souls into something magnificent and eternal. Together they had rewritten destiny itself, and their story, whispered from dragon aeries to human hearths, would inspire countless others to look beyond what was, to see what could be, and to have the courage to reach for it with both hands and an open heart. For in the end, that was the greatest magic of all, not the power to destroy or create, but the power to love without limits, to see beyond differences to the soul beneath, and to choose unity over isolation, again and again, for all the days yet to come.